Sitam Buddha Sundaram Kandharva Kautika Maniya Visesha Sobham Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Dala Sanvanamanavanshi Vanagadam Vanaya Keli Kalavilasa Shaimam Pivangaladitam Niyata Prakasha Govindamadi Purusha Tamaham Bhajami Govindamadi Purusha Tamaham Bhajami Angani Jasya Sakalendriya Krittimanti Harshanti Bandi Kalayanti Chiranjaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujjala Vigrahasya Govindamadi Purusha Tamaham Bhajami Govindamadi Purusha Tamaham Bhajami.
Part 6 of 13. So this morning we completed that section of 4 verses, 32, 3, 4, and 5. And now we're going on to the next section that forms its own little group. And just in a moment you'll see how the two connect. They definitely connect. What we discussed just previously and now. So I'm told the sound system works now for the computer. I'll just check and make sure my settings are right. Okay. So let us chant together verse 36.
Govindamadi Purusha Tamaham Bhajami Govindamadi Purusha Tamaham Bhajami.
And the translation reads, I adore the same Govinda, the primeval Lord, in whose praise men who are imbued with devotion sing the mantra suktas told by the Vedas, by gaining their appropriate beauty, greatness, thrones, conveyances, and ornaments. So, connecting the verses we just covered with this new section, which we're calling Bhakti is further explained. So, in text 34, where we, if you recall, I highlighted, attaining the lotus feet of Krishna is the goal of all the Vedas, ultimate goal. And it can be reached only by one process, by the bhakti process, Atma Bhaktao. So, please note that the gentleman in the back, Nama Vrata, please note that the diacritics are not proper. Lord Brahma, you don't change it now, but please note so that we can correct it for the future. Somehow it's not correct. So that from the previous section, bhakti is the means to attain the lotus feet of Krishna. The lotus feet of Krishna is the goal. So now this section is describing those that get there. They reach the goal. What happens? What's the experience? What events transpire? What are the stages of consciousness that they pass through? Okay, that's this section. And this verse, text 36, starts really high. It's at the Bhava Bhakti stage. For those of you that are a little newer, Bhava Bhakti is almost at the top. There's 9 stages of bhakti. And Bhava is the stage of experiencing ecstatic emotion in relationship with Krishna, and in that ecstatic bhava stage, one starts to understand the preliminary stages of understanding your particular rasa, or your particular eternal spiritual relationship with the Supreme. So that's at a mature stage of bhakti, but that's where 36 begins. And it looks like the page is running off the bottom, the letters. So, at least in my version, to enter into one of the 5 rasas, the devotee begins to enter into one of the 5 rasas. It's not showing on your screen. Huh?
It's because of the point.
Okay, we'll work it out later. So, we're now going to enter into some discussion about rasa. Rasa means mellow, or a mood of feeling towards Krishna in love. It's the preliminary stage. Sometimes the bhava stage is compared to a bud, where the flower hasn't opened yet, but it's just about to open because it's in a bud stage. That's the bhava stage. And one can tell, the color and other types of things just from the bud stage of a flower. In Bhaktisiddhanta's purport, he writes the following. The devotees, surcharged with the ideas of their respective service, this is again in the bhava stage. The respective service means, their spiritual position, not just I like to cook, or I like to do the accounting, or I like something like that. It's not. That's not what's meant by this. It's the spiritual form of the living entity and the natural spiritual emotion in one's spiritual form towards one's eternal service to Krishna. the devotees are charged with the ideas of their respective service, serve Krishna eternally, and ultimately reach the goal of their respective ideals. They attain the real nature of their self, befitting their respective rasas, their glories, conveniences, seats befitting their sacred service, and transcendental qualities of ornaments, enhancing the beauty of their real nature. So, details and details and details start to become identified in the bhava stage. I could just go through really quickly. I'll do it really quickly and then we'll come back. There's, according to Rupa Goswami, and found within the purport as well, there are 5 principal rasas, 7 secondary rasas. 5 plus 7 equals 12. So 5 primary rasas are identified. Shanta, in this painting we see some Shanta rasa personalities, the cows, the tree, Krishna's flute, the river Jamuna, the lotus flowers. They all have this Shanta rasa position. We'll come back and go over it again. Dasya, the classic Dasya personality, is Lord Ram, is his servant Hanuman. And others, in Krishna's Leela, the florist, pictured on the left side, offering Krishna his garland as he enters into Mathura. And over on the right side, Samudra. So the demigods have that feeling towards the personality of Godhead. They want to render some service. Then there's this very wonderful elevated position of Sakya rasa, friendship. Arjuna, for example, Krishna's friend. Here's Balaram exhibiting friendship towards Krishna. And famous are the cowherd boys who have that relationship of friendship with Krishna, depicted in so many very beautiful paintings, swinging on swings and playing games and having lunch and hearing Krishna play. So they're hearing Krishna's playing on his flute as the cows are hearing and the tree is hearing and the birds are hearing. There's one description that when the birds, aside from their flying in the air, they fall to the ground, just stunned hearing Krishna's flute. Sometimes they're in the tops of the trees and there are certain birds, cuckoo birds, they like to sing, but they stop singing. And they're listening very carefully to drink the sound of Krishna's flute entering their ears. We showed the picture on the right earlier, at least this is part of that picture of Gopal Kumar returning to Goloka Vrindavan. So that's friendship, and then there's parental affection, as Nanda Maharaj feels towards Krishna, and Mother Yashoda feel toward Krishna. And although he's the personality of Godhead, this painting is depicting a pastime that's described where Mother Jasoda points to Nanda Maharaj's shoes, his wooden shoes, and she smiles and says, "Would you like to bring Nanda Maharaj his shoes?" So little Krishna toddles over, takes the shoes, respectfully places the shoes of Nanda Maharaj upon his head, and toddles back, holding the shoes of his father on his head. Now imagine if a little child did that in your home. Wouldn't it be so sweet? What to speak of the personality of Godhead and his pure devotee? What kind of love is exchanged? Happiness of love between Nanda Maharaj and Krishna. Some other paintings, this classic painting on our left side of Mother Yashoda holding Krishna in her lap, like mothers hold their children in their lap and have affection for their children doing so. But to speak of the personality of Godhead. And in the case of Mother Yashoda, she's not just a living entity that became perfect in parental affection. According to our acharyas, she's in another category than a living entity. She's Shakti Tattva. She's eternally situated in that relationship with Krishna. Here she's assisting Krishna getting ready. The cowherd boys are in the background. Hurry up! Time to go herd the cows. The sun is coming up. Come on, Krishna, let's go. And Mother Yasoda's not wanting Krishna to go because of her loving affection. Balaram is tying on some ankle ornaments. There's his buffalo horn and his stick and his lotus garland. And then there's Madhurya Rasa or Shringara Rasa. We're familiar describing this conjugal affection as Madhurya. Madhu indicating sweet, the sweetness of conjugal love. And Shringara is another term, it means the same thing. Shringara is like, we use this word Shringara when we have our Mangalarti song. Shringaratan Mandir Marjanado. The spiritual master is pleased when he sees the devotees decorating the deity. That deity decoration is Shringara. So, the process. So it's the affection of the female associates of Krishna in their loving attraction for him. And a chief of all, of course, is Srimati Radharani. We'll hear in the upcoming verse how all the gopis are simply expansions of her, which is a very wonderful concept. We'll hear some more about in just a moment. And it's not just Srimati Radharani, it's all the gopis. Here's a group of intimate gopis, but there's hundreds of thousands of such gopis, each with their particular skill and their particular relationship with Krishna. And together they have wonderful pastimes. This is a very beautiful painting illustrating one pastime. I got some enthusiastic feedback about hearing the pastime, so I'm going to narrate this pastime. This is a pastime that takes place at Manasi Ganga in Govardhan Hill. So many devotees have been to Vrindavan, and if you haven't been to Vrindavan, I'm sure you'll be enthusiastic to get the opportunity to go to Vrindavan. And when you go to Vrindavan, for sure, please go to Govardhan Hill, circumambulate Govardhan Hill, and not in a motor rickshaw, but by foot. And it takes most of the day, if not the whole day, but it's ecstatic. Our great acharyas did this daily, so you can do it once. And right in the middle portion of this very long, narrow mountain, Govardhan Mountain or Govardhan Hill, is a lake called Manasi Ganga. And Manasi Ganga is non-different than Ganga. The formation of Manasi Ganga took place by a pastime of Krishna when Krishna saw Mother Yasoda and Nanda Maharaj preparing for some travel. So little Krishna asked his mother and father where they were going. What is the plan? What is this journey? And they said, we've just heard some katha, some descriptions about the glories of Ganga and bathing in the river Ganga. So we're accustomed to bathing in the river Jamuna, but we'd also like to take a journey and go bathe in the river Ganga. So Krishna said, there's no need to bathe in the river Ganga. I can make an arrangement for you to have bath in the Manasi Ganga. And they thought, oh, he's a cute boy, he's Manasi Ganga. So, but Krishna insisted. So he made an arrangement with his flute to dig a big depression, and invited Mother Ganga to come and make her presence there. So Nanda Maharaj was a little doubtful. He's a cute boy, but the Ganga coming. So Krishna insisted, no, come, let's see, let's take our bath in Manasi Ganga. And as he approached Manasi Ganga, from the lake itself, Ganga Devi arose in her crocodile carrier. And then Nanda Maharaj became convinced it wasn't just child talk, this is actually the river Ganga, present in this lake. So they abandoned their idea to make a journey. And from there on, they just took their bath in Manasi Ganga whenever they had the inspiration or enthusiasm to go bathe in the Ganga. And during Krishna's time, 5,000 years ago, the Govardhan hill was much taller. It is said nearly a mile high. That's a tall mountain. And on the side of on the side of Govardhan, the lake was really big. Today it's quite modest compared to what it was. And the location of Manasi Ganga is practically right in the middle. Govardhan runs north and south, almost. And so the gopis, when they wanted to go to the other side of the Govardhan hill, one of the ways they did, rather than going all the way around, they just crossed Manasi Ganga by boat. Because they would do their milking of cows over here and take their products over to the other side of Govardhan hill by crossing Manasi Ganga. So one time they were planning to do like that, and they only saw one boat. And the boat looked a little old, and the person was half asleep, this blackish personality was Krishna, disguised as a boatman. So this is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describing this pastime, that as they crossed, they got to the boatman, they asked the boatman, can you take us to the other side of Manasi Ganga? He said, sure, it's an old boat, but we can make it across the other side. So they loaded all their dairy products into the boat. And shortly after pulling away from the shore, the boatman started rubbing his belly and said, I'm really hungry. Can you give me some of your dairy products so that I'll have the strength to cross the river? They agreed. This will be our fare. Instead of paying you on the other side, you just take now. So he ate a lot. And after eating a lot, he said, I'm really tired after eating so much. I need to take a little nap. And they said, you take your nap on the other side, and we'll throw you on the other side of the boat and row the boat ourselves. Oh, okay. And as he started to row, by his own potency, very suddenly a dark cloud, filled the sky. Wind started to blow, and a storm came. And Krishna was tilting the boat a little bit to make the boat tilt, and water was coming in this side, and water was coming in that side. He said, this is a really dangerous situation. There's too much weight in this boat. You have to throw all your dairy products over the side of the boat, otherwise we might drown. And so they threw their dairy products over the side of the boat. And going along further, whoa, it's really dangerous. You have all these ornaments and jewels. Throw your bangles and everything over the side of the boat. Too much weight in the boat. Look at the water level, it's coming up. So they took off their bangles and threw off the side. And then Krishna said, Not only that, because of all this rain, your clothes have become soaked, so you have to throw your clothes off the side of the boat. And Radharani put her hands on her hips, said, "That's enough. We'll throw you over the side of the boat," and lunged and grabbed him and found Krishna's flute wedged in his belt. And Krishna then smiled, and the storm stopped. And everything was nice again. And for the rest of the afternoon, they forgot their dairy products. You see, they're throwing the dairy products over the side. And they just enjoyed pastimes for the rest of the day. So, this is the conjugal rasa. And in the end, he says, the Lord Brahma says, fortunate, I didn't make this PowerPoint, by the way. Disclaimer. Fortunate souls chant the name, qualities, and pastimes of the Supreme Lord under the shelter of the spiritual potency. Ki jai. So I'd like to read a little bit something that Prabhupada writes that augments this message of this verse very nicely. Just have to find the right page. Yeah. Here's a description of Srila Prabhupada writing in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 23, verse 13, describing how one can go from the beginning stages of bhakti to the bhava bhakti stage, with this verse is speaking about. Devotional life is divided into two stages: sadhana bhakti, devotion in practice, and bhava bhakti, devotion in ecstatic love. Sadhana bhakti refers to the development of devotional service through the regulative principles. The basic principle for the execution of devotional service is faith. Above that, there is association with devotees. And after that, there is initiation by the bona fide spiritual master. After initiation, when one follows the regular principles of devotional service, one becomes free from all unwanted things. In this way, one becomes firmly fixed and gradually develops a taste for devotional service. The more the taste grows, the more one desires to render service to the Lord. In this way, one becomes attached to a particular mellow in the Lord's service, like we described. Shanta Dasya Sakya Vatsalya and Madhurya. As a result of such attachment, bhava develops. Bhava bhakti is the platform of purified goodness. Purified goodness meaning without the mix of passion and ignorance. Bhava bhakti is the result of purified goodness, purifying oneself from those lower tendencies by the previous processes. By such purified goodness, one's heart melts in devotional service. Bhava bhakti is the first seed of love of Godhead. This emotional stage is there before one attains pure love. When that emotional stage intensifies, it is called prema bhakti, or transcendental love of Godhead. Nice summary of the stages of devotion. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu consistently, we find it in a number of places, especially Chaitanya Charitamrita, he compares the growth of devotion to be like a creeper or a vine that starts and gradually through the watering process of hearing and chanting, gradually grows and grows and grows, and the leaves come, And the creeper continues to grow, pierces through the coverings of the universe, enters into the spiritual sky, and unfolds at the lotus feet of Krishna, offering flowers unto the lotus feet of Krishna, and then the fruit of love of God. Lord Chaitanya made that metaphorical comparison. In Brahma Samhita, this is 36. In 55, mentioned it already yesterday, in verse 55, there's more description of the sadhana bhakti stage, which is presented in a summary way by Srila Prabhupada. How you go from being involved in simply fruitive work, a worker, a person trying to work hard to become the enjoyer of the fruits of their work, without any regard for goal or Krishna or his shelter. How one can go from that position, because that's what's in verse 54, to the position of bhakti. That's discussed in verse 55. So we're not going to go there. We'll wait till the verse 55 comes up. But this bhava stage, which is the fruit of that sadhana, there's a greater purification and greater attraction to be engaged in service, in the mood of service, in a purified state, without fruitive intention, without lethargy, without whining and complaining, but oh, the circumstances are tough. Woo, woo, woo. Just going on in devotional service with the intent of making offerings to Krishna. Somehow, despite the obstacles and the difficulties of material existence, coming to that platform, there's a stage where a taste for the devotion, and that stage taste becomes stronger than a particular affinity, not just for a particular expression of service, but the affinity for a mood of love when offering services unto Krishna. And that starts to take the shape of rasa, which is what this verse 36 is discussing. I'd like to read a little bit to expand on these rasas, not too much. This is taken from, it's a translation of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. That's Rupa Goswami's book that describes rasa. According to the opinion of advanced devotees and learned scholars, a devotee in Sakhya Rati feels equal to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is a relationship due to having. This is Sakhya. I wanted to go before that to two others. Excuse me. Yeah. I'm going to back up and we'll discuss about this bhava stage, because that's what the verse is. Before the rasa stage comes, the bhava stage is there. So here's a well-known verse, Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma. When the devotional service is situated on the transcendental platform of pure goodness, it is like a ray of the sunlight of love for Krishna. Not the full sunlight, but it's a ray. At such time, devotional service causes the heart to be softened by various tastes, and it is called bhava, or emotion. In Nectar Devotion, Prabhupada describes bhava bhakti in the following words. It's a quote directly from Nectar Devotion. By the process of executing regulated devotional service, one is actually elevated onto the transcendental stage, beyond the material modes of nature. At that time, one's heart becomes illuminated like the sun. The sun is far above the planetary systems, and there's no possibility of its being covered by any kind of cloud. Similarly, when a devotee is purified like the sun from his pure heart, there is a diffusion of ecstatic love, which is more glorious than the sunshine itself. Only at that time is the attachment to Krishna perfect. Spontaneously, the devotee becomes eager to serve in his ecstatic love. In that stage, the devotee is on the platform of Uttama Adhikari, perfect devotion. Such a devotee has no agitation from material affections and is interested only in the service of Radha and Krishna. So, Shuddha Sattva, pure goodness, and specifically again the influence of the Ladini Shakti and the Samvit Shakti, or the ecstatic potency and the absolute cognitive potency of Krishna. They begin devotional service and they're fully matured at the bhava stage. They don't go away. They just become matured. So one is now situated in this relationship with Krishna, feeling stimulated by ecstatic energy of the Supreme Lord, touching the heart, because within the heart is this affinity anyway, so it just arouses. And then expressions of devotion and service become joyfully done, not just regulatively done, but spontaneously, joyfully, ecstatically done. Rupa Goswami goes on to describe there are symptoms by which the bhava stage can be seen. You can't like hook somebody up to a bhava meter and see if they, is it a 1 or is it a 10? But there's external symptoms by which bhava is identified. It's a very nice list. Just to hear it is nice. Forgiveness. Concern that time should not be wasted. Detachment. Absence of false prestige. Hope. Eagerness. A taste for chanting the holy name of the Lord. Attachment to the description of the transcendental qualities of the Lord. And affection for those places where the Lord resides. Temple or holy place like Vrindavan. These are all called anubhav, or subordinate signs of ecstatic emotion. They are visible in a person in whose heart the seed of love of God has begun to fructify. So because of time, there's wonderful description that's basically like a nectar devotion class. I could go through one by one. What are the symptoms of Shanta, Rasa, and how that distinguishes itself when another element is added, Dasya, servitude. So neutrality is symptomized. I'll just do it quickly. Neutrality is symptomized by honoring the fact that amongst all entities there's one supreme entity, and with veneration and awe, recognizing the opulences of that primal entity, I have a feeling of awe and veneration or neutrality. Of course, like this picture we saw, the cows and the trees and the flowers, it's not just awe, there's a mixture also. They wish to please Krishna. So you add that element of servitorship. So then it becomes the next rasa, servitorship. So amongst Krishna's associates, in fact, some of the cowherd boys, there are certain ones that their mood is not friendship, their mood is servitorship. They like to bring Krishna's buffalo horn, or they like to bring the cow that went astray, or they just like to serve Krishna. That's their happiness. And then when there's the intimacy along with the service, it becomes friendship. And that friendship, in other words, each time something is added, when one is feeling oneself superior to and thus the protector of the less accomplished other individual, that's parental affection. The parents of Krishna, Yasoda and Nanda, and others who have similar rasa. And then when there's full surrender, whatever it is yours. Position. This is conjugal love. So that is a quick summary. So from the means of achieving the goal is bhakti. This verse is saying, in the maturing stages of bhakti, one may come to the bhava stage, and in the bhava stage there's some sense of one's particular eternal, natural mood of love, that's already there within the soul, and it comes out. And there's then a particular attraction of eternal service. And as indicated in the verse, the details include where you reside, what the nature of your service is, who your eternal parents are, and the types of clothes you wear, and all those details begin to awaken in the bhava stage. So what comes after that? The next verse is the prema stage. So let's begin text 37, and for your information, text 37 has the longest purport in the entire book. In fact, it's 12 pages long. So it's a sensitive subject, therefore Bhaktisiddhanta treats it with great sensitivity and elaborately lays out the whole picture. So we're going to take this in two parts. We'll speak something now on text 37, and then this evening we'll do a little review and continue on from there. I don't know if it's so well planned that in the evening we're going to be speaking about Krishna and the gopis, but that's what we're going to be talking about. Are we ready with the sound for the... Yes? Okay, here we go. Text 37. Oops. Here's the translation. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, residing in his own realm, Goloka, with Radha, resembling his own spiritual figure, the embodiment of the ecstatic potency possessed of the 64 artistic activities in the company of her confidants, or sakhis, embodiments of the extensions of her bodily form. Language is a little difficult, but we'll break it down, you'll see. permeated and vitalized by his ever blissful spiritual rasa. So I'd like to now just share a little bit the connection between the previous verse 36 and this one. In verse 36, we heard Lord Brahma speaking about the living entities attaining the bhava stage, where they begin to enter into the 5 rasas. They begin to attain their appropriate paraphernalia and ornaments and decorations and conveyances and sitting places and everything related to their particular rasa. Now, in text 37, specific focus is going to go to one of those 5 rasas, and the diacritics, the font is not good, but it's Shringara rasa, the 5th of the 5, the conjugal rasa, with special attention to Radha and Krishna's love. So we're way up there in subject matter, very elevated. And along with Radha's associates, the confidants, he calls, or the sakhis. Now, 2 more of these things, just because the composition is not helter-skelter, it's very organized composition. This text 37 is connected with the previous section, specifically this phrase, Ananda Chinmaya Sad. If we remember, that's the 3 features, Satchitananda, that make up the absolute truth. So, really quickly, I'm not going to go through these again because we've done it several times. Here's these 4 verses focusing on the form of Krishna being absolute and therefore the limbs are interchangeable. The form of Krishna being apparently filled with contradictions, that is, he's the oldest and yet is eternally youthful, and so forth. By dint of his inconceivable potencies, he's able to do this. And one can understand his form through bhakti alone. The next text is through yoga and by empiric study, one cannot understand Krishna. And then the last was the Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva, the oneness of Krishna's energies with him. At the same time, he is distinct as the source of those energies. So, in this Ananda Chinmaya Sad is repeated several times, and his form, his vigraha, is the point of emphasis. And now, this verse 37, it's Ananda Chinmaya Rasa. Whoops. Govinda's form has these 3, Satchit and Ananda, and the rasa has 2. Most prominent, of course all 3 are there, but most prominent, that which accelerates and inspires and awakens rasa, is 2 of those 3. Krishna's Ladini Shakti, or his Ananda, his ecstatic potency, and his conscious potency, or chit potency, that awakens devotional service, it awakens rasa. So Ananda Chinmaya Rasa is in this verse 37. It's to show the theme and the connection of how these verses are sewn together or strung together on the thread of ecstatic love for Krishna. So now take a deep breath, because we're going to go into a little technical subject, which is right there in the first part of his purport, Bhaktisiddhanta's purport. He discusses, there's another slide. Sorry. This is connecting 37 this verse with the initial verse, but it's similar. It's his Ananda Chinmaya Satchit Ananda Vigraha, that's the first verse. His form, that's eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. Again repeated in 32, his form, full of eternal knowledge and bliss with dazzling splendor. The point that I've been emphasizing purposefully again and again, there's no unwholesomeness in that form of Krishna. And now we're going to hear his rasa is similarly free from that same unwholesomeness, just as with his form. And misunderstanding arises when one thinks his pastimes are unwholesome, thinking he's like one of us and what's rules apply to us apply to him, but it's not so. So now Rupa Goswami, if you look in your book, Śrī Brahma-Samhita book, Bhaktisiddhanta's purport, at the beginning, he discusses this, so I'm going slowly, because he just goes quickly. And there's some Sanskrit terms that those of you that know nectar devotion, you know these terms. And those that don't, the Sanskrit isn't what's important, it's just try to understand the principle. So, rasa is a mixing of bhavas or ecstasies. This ecstasy mixed with, it's like cooking. A little zucchini and some rice and some potato and some spices, and cook it for a while, and then add something, and you get a sabji. So rasa is a mixture of different bhavas or ecstasies. So Rupa Goswami, using Sanskrit terminology that comes from the literature that he drew from, he didn't make up these terms, is from that portion of the Vedas that deals with drama. Just as there's Vedas that deal with medicine, Vedas that deal with architecture, Vedas that deal with governance, Vedas that knowledge that deals with every aspect of life, there's also a portion of the Vedas that deal with how to awaken emotion in different ways through drama, because that was the purpose of drama, is to awaken emotion towards Krishna. That's the Vedic purpose of drama. So these terms are taken directly from there. Sthayi bhava is translated commonly as continuous ecstasy, or permanent ecstasy, or it's something that each one of us has within. It's already there, just like here's a seed, and this one over here, it's mung dal, it's a seed. Over this one over here, it's a marigold flower, and this one over here, it's an oak tree, or so within the seed is the potential of something, and it's already set. You can put the seed over here, put the seed over there, but it's not going to. The oak tree seed isn't going to produce a marigold. It's going to produce an oak tree. It's already there in a seed form. So sthayi bhava is it's already there, but it becomes awakened through regulative devotional service, the touch of Ladini Shakti and Chit Shakti, and that which is already within us becomes awakened, and it becomes manifest permanently or continuously or steady ecstasy. That's one type. Then from that one type, it extends itself further into another type, and it connects to something that's called vibhava. Like some of you know that song by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Vibhavari Shesha Aloka Provisha Nidra Chadiuta Jiva. If you go to Vrindavan and you attend Mangal Arti in Vrindavan, they'll sing that song. Vibhavari Shesha Aloka Provesha Nidra Chadiyuta Jiva. And then the stimulations of that vibhava comes next. Names of Krishna. Remembering Krishna in particular aspects. Bolo Hari Hari Mukunda Murari, etc. So names of Krishna are then recited because they stimulate ecstatic love of a particular type, depending upon your heart. Your natural sthayi bhava. There's the extensions in vibhava. And that means that which stimulates ecstasy. There's steady ecstasy and that which stimulates it further. And it's sometimes identified that vibhava is the cause or the basis for relishing the matured stage of transcendental mellow. So now we have two bhavas, vibhava and sthayi bhava. And not to complicate things, but vibhava has two divisions. And those two divisions have Sanskrit names, they have meanings. Alambana. And alambani means in which love appears. So like the devotee is alambana. That's one part of alambana. Alambana has two parts too. In the language of Bhaktisiddhanta, he calls it prap. So it supports the love. Prap. So this has also two parts. The abode of love, like that's the heart of the devotee, and then there's the object of love, and that's Krishna. But please don't forget, Krishna loves his devotee too. In that case, Krishna becomes the abode of love and the devotee becomes the object of love. And there's this exchange of love, where one is the abode of love and the other is the object of love, and it goes back and forth, alternating. But they're divisions, nonetheless. For there to be love, there has to be two, lover and beloved. So if you want to be a Mayavadi, forget love, because there's no love without two, lover and beloved, and actually three. The exchange of love, three. So there's diversity in the realm of absolute. And it's very nice. And it's real, it's not imagined. And in this vibhav, which has two divisions, one is alambana and the other is udipana, by which love appears. So udipana are stimulations of ecstatic love. That's a common way that we hear it. Bhaktisiddhanta uses that language also. So now it's a lot of language. Let's take a look at this nice painting of Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan, and we'll see where it all fits together. Bhaktisiddhanta's language is on the left. The vibhava, or extension, the vibhava of rasa is twofold: alambana, prap, and udipana. Of these, alambana is twofold: ashraya, supported, and vishaya, supporter. Simply, ashraya is Radha, and the extension of her own form, extensions of her own form, that's the gopis. So the gopis are the abodes of love for Krishna, and the object is Krishna. He's the Vishaya. So Vishaya is a word that's found in Bhagavad Gita. It means the enjoyer. Vishaya vinivartante niraharsha dehinam. That's where people that are in material consciousness, they try to enjoy matter. Enjoy the objects of the senses. Vishaya. It's holiday time. Let's go party. Vishaya. oh, it didn't happen so well. It rained. Or something. She didn't treat me very nice, or he didn't treat me, he was mean, he said some bad things. Whoa, whoa, whoa. So, in the science of rasa, there must be two, the enjoyer and the object of enjoyment. And then, then Krishna, we see Krishna playing on his flute in the background, and we see Radha reacting to hearing the sound of Krishna's flute. So the flute sound is a stimulation of ecstatic love. That's udipana. Or the qualities of Krishna can be udipana. Or some particular pastime of Krishna can be a stimulation of ecstatic love, udipana. Now that sound of Krishna's flute enters into the heart or into the ear of Radha and then into the heart of Radha, and her sthāyi bhav, her steady ecstasy, is stimulated. And she then feels an accelerated love towards the object of love. Now the cows, they're also hearing that sound. And according to our acharyas, when the cows hear the sound, the natural thing that cows do is they chew cud. But they stop chewing cud and their ears are erect, drinking in the sound of Krishna's flute. And they're stunned like statues, just hearing the sound of Krishna's flute. So it strikes them in a different way because they have a different rasa with Krishna. And it strikes Radha in a different way. So the spiritual world is made up of this grand crescendo of stimulations of ecstatic love, like the qualities of Krishna, his compassion, his kindness, his cleverness, his words. And you read Nectar Devotion, you'll find so many, many listed. And they're the things that the devotees do that stimulate Krishna's love towards them, like Radha. Now, who is Radha? Radha is the Ladini Shakti. She's the pleasure potency, the ecstatic pleasure potency of Krishna. So the verse says, we could break down the Sanskrit, but just do it simpler for now. The gopis are extensions of Radha. Like Krishna expands, and Radha expands. And Radha is possessed of artistic abilities. In fact, we can say it this way. The Ladini Shakti has 64 primary qualifications. And if you look in your purport of Brahma Samhita, there's about 2.5 pages just listing them. All 64 of them. And these 64, Nija Rupataya, indicates they manifest attributes from the ecstatic energy. Radha has all 64, and when she expands in different gopis, some have some of those 64. Others have some others of those 64. And some others have some others of those 64. And then, because there's hundreds of thousands, they have in different combinations. Now, close your eyes and imagine that you're Krishna for a moment. No, don't do that. Too practiced in that anyways. So, Krishna, he's the best of enjoyers. So, he really knows how to enjoy. He enjoys through his own pleasure potency. If you remember from verse number 34, the energies are inseparable from Krishna. Remember that? Ekopyaso rachayatam jagadandakotim. So as with the cosmic manifestation, so also with the spiritual realm. The potencies of Krishna are not different than Krishna. They're his potency, they're him. Like sunshine is of the sun. The Hladini Shakti is of Krishna. Perhaps those of you that were with us, because some persons have joined us a little bit after the beginning, but we saw that nice picture, Pranaya Keli Kala Vilasam. We saw that one of nice pictures of Krishna's pastimes, where Krishna disguised himself as a goddess and went to visit Radharani. Remember that story?
Yeah.
And in the course of that story, Krishna wanted to hear directly from Radharani what her feelings for him are. And she told. And so the Leela is very nice, but part of what she told is, Krishna's in my heart and I'm in Krishna's heart, and that's forever. It's not just like, a romance. It's eternal. And then she went further and said, actually, we're one entity. We're in two forms, but we're one entity. And then Krishna said, as this goddess, well, not that I disbelieve you, but if it's true, can you just think of Krishna and Krishna should appear? So Radha thought of Krishna, concentrated, and Krishna, who was this goddess, took off his goddess disguise, and there he was as Krishna, right in front of all the gopis. So they're actually the two forms. It's very, very important in properly understanding Radha and Krishna. It's right in the introductory verses of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Very important, very famous verses. Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikritir Hladini Shakti Asmat Ekatmanav Api Bhuvi Pura Deha Bedagatauta, which means, Srup Damodar is saying, these two, there they are, Radha Krishna, they're eternally manifested in two forms, but they're one entity. One entity in two forms, eternally, like sun and sunshine. Two entities, but actually one entity. Sun and sunshine are inseparable. So Radha and Krishna are actually one entity, manifested in two forms. So when Krishna is having pastimes with Radha, he's enjoying himself, his own pleasure potency. It's different than when boy and girl see each other and go, wow, she's nice, he's nice. It's different. It's not us. It's Krishna's energy, and we're thinking, wow, that's nice energy. But with Krishna, it's not like that. It's his own energy. And then the verse is saying, this verse 37, the gopis are expansions of Radha. As this Hladini Shakti is made up of these 64 things, so when Radha does these 64 things, it gives Krishna pleasure. That's the pleasure potency. 64 different things and combinations of those things. She knows them expertly. Like, one of the things that Radharani is most known for, those that don't know so much about her may know that she's expert at cooking. So, would you believe, the answer is yes, would you believe that one of the qualities of Radha that's in these 64 is her cooking? And there it is, number 24. You can see it listed right in your book. Chitra Shakha Hupa Bhaksha Vikara Kriya, translated by Bhaktisiddhanta, compliments of him. She knows the art of preparing varieties of salad, bread, cake, and delicious food. Now this is already a quality of Radha. It's part of the Hladini Shakti. And maybe you have heard, and in case you haven't, I'm going to describe it, the pastime of Durvasa Muni giving Radha the benediction that she received, which is a Leela, which resulted then in when Radharani, so here's the Leela. Radharani's a little girl. It's a Leela. She's Krishna's eternal pleasure potency. But in her pastime, she's a little girl and she's with her gopi friends. And they're off in the fields of Vrindavan. Durvasa Muni comes by. Now, who is Durvasa Muni? He's a partial expansion of Lord Shiva. Durvasa Muni is the son of Atri and Anasuya. From their worship, they received 3 sons, a partial incarnation each of Lord Vishnu, Lord Brahma, and Lord Shiva. And Durvasa Muni was their son as a partial incarnation of Lord Shiva. And everybody knew, look out, here comes Durvasa Muni, because he's Ashutosh. He can get really angry over nothing, and wow, he gets really hot and says something heavy, and whew. But he can also, the other side, he can be easily pleased. That's the meaning, Ashutosh. Easily pleased, easily angered. So here comes Durvasa Muni in the fields of Vrindavan. And he approaches the gopis, little girls, young girls who are playing. You know, imagine, young girls playing in a field. And here comes Durvasa Muni and says, I'm very hungry. I want something to eat right now. As in, right now. And the gopis said, well, we'll be glad to prepare something for you, but we're off in the field. We'll go back to our homes and we'll be back in a big hurry. We'll be right back. He said, no, you don't understand. I want something to eat right now. So the gopis turned to Radharani. What do we do? And Radharani said, no problem. I'll just take some of the dust, mix it with some water, make some biscuits in a matter of seconds, and give the biscuits to Durvasa Muni. And they handed Durvasa Muni those biscuits. And Durvasa Muni said, what? You expect me to eat this? And the gopis said, no, you don't understand. Radharani is really expert. She has this quality. Whatever she cooks is very nice. Try one. Just try one. So he forced himself. He took a bite of the biscuit, or one of them. And it was so good. He finished that biscuit and ate all the biscuits. And then Durvasa Muni, being pleased by this wonderful quality of Radha, gave a benediction. And his benediction was, from now for the rest of your life, whatever you cook, whatever you prepare, it'll always be something different. It'll taste different to whoever eats it. And whoever eats your food, they will live a long life and be always very healthy. And he left. And the gopis were like, you know. And they informed their parents. And when Radharani informed her mother, Kirtida was a very dear friend of Mother Yashoda. They were very close friends. So when Mother Yashoda heard, oh, Radha has this benediction. My dear friend Kirtida, can your daughter come and cook for my son every day so he'll live a long life and never have any disease? She said, sure. So from little girl, every day, every morning, from Varsana, Radha would go to Nandagram, that's the place where Krishna's father lived, and she would cook breakfast for Krishna. And in the evening when Krishna came back, she would help Mother Yasoda cook the evening meal. That's a pastime. Because Radha already has this quality. She doesn't need a benediction from Durvasa Muni or anything. But it's a Leela where persons are being engaged and brought into loving exchanges between Radha and Krishna. And that's Vrindavan. Everyone in Vrindavan, the cows, the cowherd boys, the trees, the river Jamuna, they're all engaged. Whatever their rasa is, there's this mixture of Shringara rasa. And as far as the friends of Radha, the gopis, they're immediate manifestations of her. They're expansions of her. They're not different than her in some portion of her. So when Krishna engages in pastimes with them, it's his own potency. There's no unwholesomeness in it. You get the idea? So now, Bhaktisiddhanta's language, all these arts, these 64, manifesting their own eternal forms, are ever visible in the region of Goloka as the ingredients of rasa. Remember from that chart, the udipan, stimulations? These are stimulations. When Radha, we could go through the list, but to save time, you can go through the list. Well, let's partially go through the list. Open your books, if you have a book. Otherwise, just listen with your ears. And we'll read some of these amazing 64 things. Art of singing, art of playing musical instruments, art of dancing, art of theatricals, art of painting the face and body with colored unguents and cosmetics, art of preparing offerings from rice and flowers, art of making a covering of flowers for a bed. Anyway, and on it. So the 64th, and when Radha does these things, just like her cooking, it's not like, oh, she can cook. When I was a kid, I learned how to cook, but I'm sure it wasn't like Radha's cooking. Anyway, so each one of these things that she does, they're a portion of the Ladini Shakti. They make up the Ladini Shakti, these 64 things. So these are the ingredients of rasa. They stimulate love for Krishna. When Radha sings, love for Radha is awakened or enhanced, increased in Krishna. His feelings of love for Radha increase. But it's his own potency doing these things. And in the mundane sphere, that means here on earth, Gokula, they have been unstintedly exhibited in the pastimes of Vraja by the spiritual or chit potency. So he wants us to know that these ingredients of rasa and the arts of Radha, it's not, she went to culinary school and she learned how to cook. It's the chit potency. That's Radharani. Now, this is a little application exercise of what we just covered. You see here a very famous ISKCON painting of Radha and Krishna and the 8 principal gopis. So there's going to be a quiz question at the end of this little section, and I'm going to ask you this question. Who's who in this painting? Because it's nice just to look at the painting. But now we're going to go a little more deeply and understand what verse 37 says. Here we go. One of the gopis pictured here, this is a hint. You see the one sitting down holding a tambura. That's the one in this picture here. Okay? Tungavidya. According to our acharyas, Tungavidya is expert in 18 of the 64 arts, and they're specific. Those 18 include everything related to dancing, drama, and all the other things to do with the arts. So this is going to be one of the answers to the quiz question at the end. And we're going to show the painting again, and we'll ask people to raise their hand and who's who. So one of them is Tungavidya. Then there's Indulekha. And Indulekha is her expertise, some of the 64 items that she's gifted with. She's the Radha's expansion, who's expert in occult sciences like palmistry, mantras, astrology, and those kinds of things, magical things. And she's also expert in all things to do with flowers. So, hint, when you see the 8 gopis, one's holding a flower garland, who is that? Very good. I think you're going to get an A in your exam with a little coaching. And there's Ranga Devi. One of the gopis is holding a tray that has what Ranga Devi has here in her hand. She's expert both in controlling animals plus everything to do with perfumes and cosmetics. Kind of like what Kubja was doing for King Kamsa, Ranga Devi does for Krishna. Ranga Devi. Remember her name because you're going to be asked in the quiz. Ranga Devi. And then there's Champakalata. And she's expert in collecting fruits, flowers, and roots from the forest. And she's amongst all the gopis, of course they're very interested in Vraja and the living entities within Vraja, but she's chief. She's the protectress of trees and creepers and bushes in Vrindavan. She's their leader, and that's Champakalata. But she's also expert in cooking. Hint, one of the gopis is carrying a tray that has cooked foods to offer to Krishna. In fact, she's so expert, especially in sweets, that she has another name. Mistahasta, sweet hands. And here's another, using only the skill of her hands, she can artistically fashion things from clay. So Champakalata's got a lot of skills. Here's another nice painting of Champakalata decorating Radharani's feet. Okay, so don't blurt it out, but raise your hand and one at a time. Who's who in this picture below? Okay, one. Which one?
She's serving Radharani.
They're all serving Radharani. Which one? He's going to go look at his notes. Hold on a moment.
I think it's the flowers one, so Indulekha.
Okay. So there's Indulekha. Whoops. Oh, I didn't go to the next one, did I? There we go. I'm sorry. There's Indulekha holding the flower garland. That's one out of 4 that, of course, they all have. They're all expansions of Radha, each invested with some of these 64 in different combinations. Then someone else. Go ahead. Which one is she? Go ahead, say.
I think she's the one. No, sorry, Champakalata.
Where is she?
She's I think the one on the end on the right.
On the right, okay. And what's she doing?
She picks flowers.
Champakalata is Misty Hasta. She's sweet hands. She knows how to cook and make sweets very expertly. So she's holding like this. She's the one holding the offerings for Krishna, cooked, baked offerings for Krishna. Champakalata. Someone else. There's one boy in the back. He's very enthusiastic to share with us. He's looking at his notes.
I think that the one sitting next to Radharani with the tambura is Tungavidya.
Which one?
The one sitting next to Radharani.
Next to Radharani. What's her name?
Tungavidya.
Ranga Devi, right.
Oh, yeah.
Sitting down. You're very
Sitting down. Oh, I thought you said next to Radharani. Sitting down. And her name is? Tungavidya. Yes? Tungavidya. She's playing the tambura.
Yeah.
Or whatever stringed instrument. Veena. And last one. Go ahead.
Is the one that's next to
Krishna.
the one that's
Next to Krishna, on Krishna's right shoulder. Her name is?
I think it's Rangadevi.
Rangadevi. She has some aromatics, some nice scented oils and offerings for Krishna like that. So you get the idea. Each of the gopis, not only the 8, but each of the gopis, they're expansions of Radha. As Krishna expands, he can do that. One light can light another candle from that candle. Radharani also has the capacity to expand, and she does. And these expansions are her confidants or sakhis. They're expansions of her. They're embodiments of her. Not like, they're non-entities. They're entities. They're persons with personalities and feelings and, emotion and likes and dislikes and so forth. Personality, the characteristics of them. But they're simply expansions of her. Just like we're living entities, we're expansions of Krishna. We're tiny. Ooh, so tiny. Expansions of Krishna's marginal potency. We're individuals. We have different personalities and likes and dislikes and things like that. So, this is a picture of the spiritual world, helping us to understand the conjugal love, or Sringara Rasa, or the relationship of Radha and Krishna in the spiritual world. In the language of Bhaktisiddhanta's purport, although the Lord Absolute and His potency are one and the same, self-same existence, still they exist eternally as separate entities. We discussed this already. They're one entity in two forms. But the two forms, then by combination, they make rasa. And specifically, Radha is this Shringara rasa. In both the ecstatic energy, that's Radha, and the transcendental Lord Krishna, there exists Shringara rasa. It's not that Krishna is, in the language of the Vedas, raso vai saha. And saha is a pronoun that means that. So the absolute truth is rasa. So Krishna includes everything, because he's the source of everything. So within Krishna is everything. Within Krishna is this Shringara rasa towards Radha. And within Radha is Shringara rasa toward Krishna. And there's things that Krishna do. He's, by the way, expert in these same 64 things. Like that one pastime that I narrated, Krishna started singing, disguised as Shama Saki. And when Krishna started singing, Radha was feeling ecstasy. Oh, my dear Saki, you're so kind. You've broken my anger and my sulking mood just by your wonderful singing. I'm so indebted to you. So when Krishna sings, Radha feels ecstasy. And when Radha sings, Krishna feels ecstasy. Why? Because within them, there's already existing the Shringara rasa. And then there's stimulations of that. These 64 things. And then the mixing of the 64 things makes for varieties of rasa. Isn't it very nice? Very nice. And the quality of both of them, he concludes, it's inconceivable. Still we can talk about it. But to experience it is beyond our conception. Now we'll just do one more thing before we take a break. And this is now directly from Bhaktisiddhanta's purport. After he covers, this little science of rasa section, Vaibhav and Staibhav, Vaibhav, Staibhav, Alambana, Udipana, all those terminologies. He lists these 64. He's now going to explain, and he did it already actually, in Goloka, these are there in their fullness. In this Krishna's earthly pastimes, they're eternally going on also. Eternally going on also. Like even we may go to Vrindavan and not see Krishna's pastimes, but Krishna's pastimes are eternally going on also. So now, Bhaktisiddhanta is going to take us on this comparison, which existed in text 3, now we're getting in terms of rasa in text 37. There's no difference between the two abodes. Similarly, there's no difference in the rasa of these two abodes. And if anyone sees a difference, well, it's a matter of their realization, it's not a matter of fact. Because the fact is, there's no difference. You had that question. And he's now going to explore it and explain it. There's no difference. Although there appears that there's difference. And then we're going to read, a little section from the purport that begins, hence the realization of Goloka appears in proportion to eligibility. So open your book to page 37, verse 37, and see if you can find that section. I didn't mark it in my book and I can't find it just now. You show me? Huh? Show me, just point it out. Where? All these arts. Where's the hence?
It's after all the 64 qualities are listed. That's where I am.
Does somebody find it in your book? Show me. No. How does the paragraph begin?
It is only is the fifth paragraph.
It is only those fettered souls who are excessively addicted to worldliness. That's the one?
Yes.
That are devoid of devotional eye. Of them, some are enmeshed by the variegatedness of the deluding energy, while others aspire after self-annihilation, the nihilists, etc., etc., etc. Where's the hence?
Just two sentences.
Yeah, the third sentence in that paragraph is
hence the realization of Goloka appears.
Okay. Hence the realization of Goloka appears in proportion to eligibility due to the degree of one's self-realization. In other words, some people see this, some people see that, some people see another thing according to their consciousness. If you're going to have the consciousness of being able to see Goloka in fullness, that is proportionate to what your realization is proportionate to how your receptivity of the Hladini Shakti and the Chit Shakti. To just like what we're doing right now. We're hearing some very elevated subject matter. Some persons in the room may be scratching their heads saying, what? And some persons in the room saying, and some persons in the room may feel, yes. So according to our trajectory of our spiritual progress, we're going to understand less or more. And the fullness is made possible according to the receptivity and the eagerness to receive the transcendental reality, or be situated in our relationship with Krishna. So seeing differences between upper and lower Goloka, or Goloka Vrindavan and Gokula here, there's actually no difference, although there appears to be difference. Because that was discussed earlier in text 5. I'll share with you some of the things that we heard in text 5. In Goloka, there's no demons. In Gokula, there's demons. Kamsa sends demons to kill Krishna, and Krishna kills the demons. In Goloka, there's no birth pastime. But Mother Jasoda and Nanda have the sense Krishna is our son, but there's no birth pastime. Here there's a birth pastime. So it appears there's difference. But he's making the statement, actually there's no difference. And the realization of the fact that there's actually no difference requires realization, because it certainly looks different. But from a bhava or emotion, transcendental emotion perspective, there's no difference. Now, we're going to say much more about that in a bit, and then again this evening. This is kind of taking his purport, his 12-page purport, in chunks or in segments, and trying to digest what he wants us to hear, what he wants us to do, to be revealed to us. So let's go on just a little bit. Bhaktisiddhanta writes, there's no distinction between the visible and non-visible pastimes. What does that mean? Visible is when Krishna appears and everybody can see his pastimes. That's his visible pastimes. Kamsa can see. The washerman can see. Unqualified people can see. Duryodhana can see. You know, any fellow can see. Not qualified people can see. That's his manifest pastimes. The unmanifest pastimes are in Gokula. I'm pointing up in the sky because that's upper Goloka, the spiritual world. We can't see. And the second is after Krishna withdraws his pastimes from ordinary people's vision, we can't see those pastimes going on, although they're eternally going on. Like the residents of Vrindavan, the 6 Goswamis were able to see Krishna's pastimes. When we go there, we don't see, but the qualified person can see. So those are the unmanifest. So the Sanskrit terms, those of you who like Sanskrit terms, prakat and aprakat, manifest and unmanifest. So his statement is, there's no distinction between the two. And the appearance that there's a distinction between the two, he says, Jiva Goswami has given this nice term, Vip Brahma Vilas. So, what does that mean? Joyous pastimes by the medium of seeming error, or as the contrivance of Yogamaya. Now, what does that mean? The Sanskrit vilasa is a term that means pastime. Like Damodar Vilas is the pastimes of Damodar. You know, the binding of Krishna. Binding of Damodar, Krishna, around the waist. Dama Udara, around the waist. He was bound with a rope. And Vilas means joyous pastimes. It's a particular term, like Leela means pastime. Vilas means the same thing, but it has a connotation, it's like jubilant, joyful. especially. So, vilas, that's the meaning of that word, and then vip Brahma, vilas. I'll just go forward a bit, and where is it? Where's that slide? Yeah, here's the 4 defects of every conditioned soul. You know, this is in what? It's in Nectar of Instruction. No, it's in Śrī Upanishad. Those of you that teach Śrī Upanishad, yes? For every living entity that's conditioned, by the way, that's us, there's defects. And the first listed in that 4 of defects is BHRAMA, prone to make mistakes. That's a defect. Like this question about, you know, unwholesomeness and wholesomeness. This is an unwholesomeness that we have. We have a tendency to make mistakes. We'll come back to this slide again, but when you put VI, the prefix V Brahma, it amplifies it. It's very mistaken. Big error. Vibrahma Vilas are, now we'll go back. This is Jiva Goswami's language, where Bhaktisiddhanta is quoting him, saying, where it appears that there's a difference between Goloka and Gokula, it's only in a seeming sense of error that there are such differences. Something that's different from what it appears to be. We'll give an example. Give a few examples. Well, one example that's really easy is Mother Yashoda and Nanda, they feel that Krishna is their son, although he never takes birth as their son. Well, that's an error. It's like a big error. Vibrahma Vilas. But they have that mood of love where it seems that he's their son, at least to them. And everyone else also accepts, because it's part of the internal potency. Or as the message up top of that says, the action of Yogamaya. Everybody feels, not only Yashoda and Nanda. I mean, certainly they would know if Krishna is their son or not. And they feel he's their son, although he never took birth. So that's Vibrahma Vilas in the spiritual Goloka realm. And then when Krishna performs his pastimes, he who is unborn is born. Well, that's a seeming error. He appears to be born, but he's not. He's eternal. He's never born. So it plays itself out differently in Goloka, and it plays itself differently in the earthly pastimes, but in both cases it's Vibrahma Vilas. Got it? There's an example. Here's another example. And we're going to do 3. Second example is demons. In Krishna's earthly pastimes, it seems that there's demons. Surely it seems there are demons. There are these living entities sent by Kamsa. They go to try to kill Krishna. Krishna gives them the KO, and they're finished. And they're liberated. The soul goes into the position of liberation, because being by the hand of Krishna, they're killed by Krishna. But actually there's no demons, because how can a demon come before the Supreme Pure? It can't. And in Goloka, there's no demons, but the way it's described in Gopal Champu is from time to time one unknown person comes running through Vrindavan and calls out, "Watch out! Here comes Aristasura!" There's no Aristasura. And this unknown person, who is he? It's the Yogamaya potency arranging this emotion. So everyone goes, "Oh, Krishna, help, please give us shelter." And Krishna gives shelter. But there was never, Aristasura never comes. But it's a bhava. And thinking Aristasura is coming, it's an error. Vibrahma Vilas. something seemingly different from what it appears to be. That's his language. So that's two examples. Birth, demons, and now the third example is marriage. In Goloka, there's no marriages. The gopis do not marry, and there's no children between the husbands that they haven't married and them. There's no marriages. But there's this bhava that they're married, although there was no marriage. Got it? So, to allow the sense of intimacy of love between Krishna, who they are expansions of his Hladini Shakti, they have this bhava, the sense that they're married, and then they enjoy pastimes with Krishna as if enjoying outside of marriage. Which, in this world, that's irreligious. But in that world, it's a lila. It intensifies the feeling of love. Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj, in his class in Vrindavan on Brahma Samhita, which I've listened to 18 times, he describes it this way. Some of you are married. And before you were married, when you started meeting your spouse and thinking, woo, 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 it was really nice. And then you got married, and then something happened. And that's something that happens according to the language of Bhaktisiddhanta is the sense of proprietorship or ownership. You're bound by vows of marriage to the marriage partner. So with that sense of ownership, it's not the same as before you were married. Oh, she's so nice. Oh, he's so nice. Whoa, whoa, whoa. And it's not just getting to know each other. The emphasis that he's making in rasa is the distinction of ownership. So there's the owner. I'm committed. I must serve my husband. I must take care of my wife. It's my religious duty. By vows of sacred marriage, I do these things. And then there's this other kind of love. So for us, the other kind of love is immoral. It's enjoined in any scripture and religious teaching in the world. It's immoral. So we don't do immoral things. But for Krishna, there's this excitement or added happiness in that kind of love. So there's no marriage, but there's the bhava that there's marriage. Vibrahma Vilas. Then here, there's marriages. We're going to hear some more detail about that. I don't know if I should do that in an evening class. What's the attendance of the people that come here going to think? What are we teaching? Maybe I'll skip it and do this extension tomorrow morning. I think that's what I'm going to do. We'll continue this tomorrow morning. We'll go to 38 tonight. So, here, when Krishna performs his earthly pastimes, not all the gopis are married, but some of the gopis are married. But you know how that marriage took place? It was, here's the detail. During the stealing of the calves and cowherd boys and putting them in the cave by Lord Brahma, and then he came back, and there we saw the picture. He came back and saw the cows and the calves and the cowherd boys, and so then Krishna showed this Narayana forms, and then after that Narayana forms, all the Narayana forms disappeared. It was just Krishna standing there, specifically holding in his left hand a lump of yogurt and some fruit, because he was going to eat with his right hand, just staring at Brahma, unblinking eyes. And Brahma fell to the ground, paying his obeisances. And offered beautiful, beautiful prayers to Krishna. And then Krishna didn't even answer him because he wanted to go back and finish his lunch with the cowherd boys. For him, that's the greatest happiness, more than these wonderful prayers. They're wonderful prayers. But the happiness for him is greater, being with the cowherd boys, having lunch. So during that period of time, our acharyas described, this isn't a Bhagavatam rendering, it's from some other source, but during that period of time, Brahma's few moments of being away, 1 year had passed. Actually, it is in the Bhagavatam. 1 year had passed. And during that 1 year, Krishna was fulfilling the desire of the mothers of the cowherd boys to have Krishna as their son, only he appeared to be exactly like their sons. Exactly. What mother couldn't tell who their son is from an imposter son? Well, if that expansion is Krishna, and the voice and all the little subtle features of their faces and their bodies and their stature, exactly. Because the one that was their son came from Krishna too. So for 1 year, they had Krishna as their son. And all the calves became the children of the cows. But those calves were Krishna, because the cows also had this affection for Krishna. They wanted to have Krishna as their calf and give their milk to Krishna. So he reciprocated with them and became their calf. And the description is there, when the cows were grazing on the side of Govardhan Hill and the calves were down below, they started running down Govardhan Hill. You ever seen a cow run? Not very often, but I've seen a cow run. It's really humorous. And they were running and galloping down the hill of Govardhan, and the cowherd men were chasing the cows down the Govardhan. Come back, come back. But as they got closer and closer to where the boys were, they completely forgot everything out of their affection for the boys, because their boys are Krishna. And the calves began drinking the milk of the cows, because the cows wanted to give their milk to Krishna. So during that 1 year of this pastime of Krishna being the cowherd boys and Krishna being the calves, Krishna made a proposal to Nanda Maharaj. He said, this is a very auspicious time. In our culture, young boys are married to young girls at a very early age. They don't live together, but they know that they're married. So this is a very good time. Let's have all the cowherd boys married to all the cowherd girls. Nanda Maharaj liked anything that Krishna said, so she said, let me check with Purnamasi. Purnamasi said, great idea. So marriages were held. And all the cowherd boys, Krishna, married all the cowherd girls, fulfilling their desire to have Krishna as their husband. Cool, huh? And then when 1 year passed, the real cowherd boys returned from the caves, and by Yogamaya's influence, they forgot everything that happened. But they heard from their parents that you were married. They just accepted that they were married to the cowherd girls. And then when they were old enough to be married, they lived together as husband and wife. But some of them, like specifically, it's said about Abhimanyu, because when the boys were married, Radharani married Krishna, who was appearing like Abhimanyu. Remember that painting of Jatila with the broom in her hand, wanting to swat Abhimanyu when he came back in the house? Get out of here, you're a pretender. I know who you are. You're Krishna in disguise of my son. Get out at once or I'll smack you. So Jatila was the mother of Abhimanyu. So when Radharani was of age, since she's a little girl, she's been cooking for Krishna every day. So she's married to Abhimanyu, but she goes to cook for Krishna every day. And then there's all these pastimes of Radharani going to cook for Krishna, even when she's married. But our acharyas say, Abhimanyu is the so-called husband of Radharani. He didn't even come close enough to Radharani to touch her shadow. So-called marriage of her so-called husband. Because who can be married to Radharani, the internal potency of Krishna, but Krishna? Well, he married her in that Leela described. So the so-called husband is Abhimanyu. Anyway, it's a little mystical. But that's this Vibrahma Vilas, joyous pastimes by the medium of seeming error as the contrivance of Yogamaya. So now there's these two terms, Swakiya and Parakiya. And what they mean is, Swakiya is husband and wife. They're married. They have a relationship of husband and wife in marriage. And Parakiya is the other kind, where they're not married. And they have an intimate relationship with one another, boy and girl. Or married and having a relationship on the side with another man who's not her husband. In Vedic culture, aside from the rest of the world, that's sinful. It's a no-no. So when Krishna performs what is considered to be Parakiya Rasa, moralists go, oh my God. You've probably heard it somewhere along the line. Tell a little story. Rabindra Sarup Prabhu. Some of you know Rabindra Sarup Prabhu. When he became introduced to Krishna consciousness when he was in college, as did I. Only he completed his education as I did not. And Prabhupada's instruction was to do so. He completed his PhD in philosophy. So he and I were initiated the same day, in the same place, the same time. So we've had this very nice relationship for a long, long time. Except some stupid things that I did in the course of our service together. But other than that, nice relationship. And he described this in a public forum once, where he knew that Prabhupada liked to have dialogue with scholars and professors and government people and, that caliber of individuals to help influence them to understand Krishna properly. So Rabindra got this bright idea that as PhD professor, he could arrange a meeting between Prabhupada and his PhD professor. So professor agreed, Prabhupada agreed, they had their meeting, and as they sat down, the first thing the professor said was, Swamiji, how can you worship a bad person, a debauchee, that mixes with other men's wives? How can you be a worshipper of such a person? And without blinking and hesitating for a moment, Prabhupada said, he is not the debauchee, you are the debauchee. Because you're thinking that this is my wife and I can enjoy with my wife. But the fact of the matter is, that spirit soul is Krishna's part and parcel, and you're trying to enjoy Krishna's part and parcel as if she's yours to enjoy. But she's Krishna's to enjoy, and you're the debauchee. The professor didn't know what to say. In fact, Prabhupada writes the same thing in Krishna book. That's another one of the slides coming up. But it's it's not easy to understand. If you have a material conception of life, forget it. If you're a jnani, forget it. Only through the medium of devotion is it possible. And even then, we hold on to our worldly sensibilities that say this is right and wrong. We want to confine Krishna to our parameters, but it's not It's not so. It's not accurate to do so. And therein lies a problem. So a major part of the purport of text 37, which will continue tomorrow morning, not tonight, is his discussion on this swakiya parakiya topic. There's a lot to say about it, and it's important to understand it, both for your edification and perhaps relieving your heart of perhaps some uncertainty, or just like looking the other way because I don't want to think about it because I don't want to think about it. So there's a way to clearly explain, and if you don't understand it, read it again and read it again and read it again, or listen to it again. But the explanation is provided very, very, very eloquently and precisely by Bhaktisiddhanta in this purport. The second part is, you may encounter somebody somewhere along the line who says, like that professor said to Śrīla Prabhupada, or they may not say it so grossly, but in a questioning way or a challenging way, saying, what about this? How can... There are Vaishnavas that they worship only the childhood pastimes of Krishna and not the other pastimes of Krishna, because the other pastimes of Krishna, as far as they're concerned, they're bad. Here's one from Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi said, there are two Krishnas. Krishna's a name. Somebody can be named, Tom and Bill and Bob. So Krishna's a name. And as far as I'm concerned, there are two Krishnas. There's Krishna who instructed Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, and there's this other one. This one that's immoral, and I don't like him. And if I have to accept it's one Krishna, this immoral one that I don't like, then I give up my Hinduism. My Krishna is da-da-da-da-da-da. That's Mahatma Gandhi. What to speak of, a fellow on the street, or a pious Hindu that understands, what is to be done, what is not to be done, what is right and what is wrong, what is moral, what is immoral, thinking the standard that I have for my conduct, which is the correct standard, such a thing is immoral. And when Krishna does, they're worshipping Krishna, doing immoral things. So you follow the importance of wholesome, unwholesome language of Bhaktisiddhanta. So let us continue tomorrow morning. And let's see how far we get, because it takes some time to do this properly. Any discussion? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I actually had two questions.
Two questions.
Okay, so the first one is what's actually the difference between the bhavas and the rasas? What's
the difference between?
Bhava and rasa.
Bhava?
And rasa.
Bhava means emotion of ecstasy. It can, at this stage it means. Bhava can have a more gentle or general meaning. Have you heard the phrase Ishwara Bhav? You know what Ishwara means? Ishwara means controller. Do you know any people that have a spirit that they like to be a controller? Yes, Maharaj. We won't mention any names. That's Ishwara Bhav. It's a bhav, it's a state of mind, a feeling, an inclination. Like that. So there's other adjectives that can describe bhava, but it's, a feeling or emotion. a condition of life. So in this case, what our topic is, it's the stage that just before love. It's ecstatic emotion in relation to Krishna and service to Krishna. Rasa is a particular type of attraction of love and service. This type, that type, that type. Okay?
Yeah.
Your second question.
In the Sanskrit it says Ananda Chinmaya Rasa.
Yeah.
So why is there no Sat in like that? So the
Why
rasa,
does it what?
Why is there no there's no Sat, so the Rasa is not eternal? Like the Sat word is not mentioned in that.
When it says Ananda Chinmaya Rasa,
So
why doesn't it say anything about Sat?
the Rasa is
Ah.
eternal.
Okay. Turn the microphone off. I explained, I'll say it again slowly, because you're asking. The form of Krishna identifies all three, including Sat. Rasa, I said it, but Sat is also there. But with Rasa, especially prominent are these other two. And therefore, Ananda Chinmaya Rasa. So, all in the spiritual world, all three are present all the time. But if you recall, maybe you heard the seminar, previous one, in the manifestation of Goloka, described in those first three verses, or 3, 4, and 5, it's the Sat potency of Balaram, or his all-accommodating potency that manifests the abode of Krishna, the forms in Goloka. So there is the prominence of the Sat, or Sandini potency. The others are there, but this one is prominent. You got it? So with Rasa, these two are especially prominent. And you know, like your question, when Ladini Shakti is missing, and one is just studying, well, they're trying to reach toward the Chit Shakti, but not getting it, actually. And especially, the Ladini potency is missing for Gyanis. They don't really feel devotion for Krishna. They're just searching for the sunlight with their flashlight. Where's the sun? I know it's around here somewhere. When Krishna Bhakti is missing. You got it? We're okay with the answer? Okay. Yes.
Maharaj, there are two questions online. First one is from Brajahari Prabhu. This is apparently, the context is based on a conversation with another senior devotee. He says, I had mentioned that a devotee becomes aware of his connection to Krishna in a rasa, and he worships him in that rasa. A senior devotee told me that it is not true. Kindly resolve.
Oh, I don't know. Because what he understood is what I understood. So you'd have to go ask that other senior devotee. What's the next question?
Next question is from Lavanya Mataji. She asks, when Krishna in the form of all the cowherd boys married the gopis, who did Krishna in his own form marry?
There's no indication. That's a nice question. No indication. Nice question. Yes.
So Maharaj, this is based on Sundara Pashupati Prabhu's question in the morning session.
Okay.
So I just wanted to clarify my understanding with respect to the Nitya Baddhas. So in this, the Nitya Baddhas are like, they are eternally conditioned, but then they have an opportunity to go back to Godhead. So when they go back, they'll become Nitya Siddhas, right? Because as Krishna promises...
No. Sadhana Siddha or Kripa Siddha?
So, but then Krishna promises that Yad Gatvan Invartante Tad Dhamam Paramam, so they will never come back.
That's correct. And they're Nitya Siddha, excuse me, they're Sadhana Siddha or Kripa Siddha?
Okay.
Not Nitya Siddha. Nice try though.
Okay. Thank you, Maharaj.
You're welcome.
So another question.
Okay.
So you said that there are no birth pastimes in the Goloka Vrindavan.
Yes.
So but then what about the childhood pastimes where...
There's childhood pastimes, no problem.
Okay.
No problem. But there's no pregnancy in birth.
So but then another following question to that one, like then if there are no children, right? The parents, I mean, seemingly they get married, but then there is no children. But then what about the childhood friends of Krishna? Like, what is their relationship?
Then it's just in her. There's the, I mean, these are detailed things that our acharyas haven't elaborated on. So I'm just speaking more by inference than by our acharyas said. But by inference, there's this bhava that these are our children. Period. Now, how does it work when souls become perfected and enter into the spiritual realm? How does it work? Where did this guy come from? This cowherd boy come from? How does he become the son of this mother and father with this name and so forth? No technology is described, but it's the contrivance of the Yogamaya potency. By Yogamaya potency accept this child. So like, in the Brihat Bhagavatamrita, it doesn't say who accepts Gopakumar, who then is given Sarup, another name. How does he become, who's his mom and dad? When he goes home at night, where does he go? It doesn't say. He stays with Krishna for some time, but eventually he's got to go somewhere. It doesn't say. But somehow, by contrivance of Yogamaya potency, one accepts. That's all. Without the technology.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. In the back, some ladies have some questions. Oh, you've got the phone. Oh, go ahead. Aditi, go right ahead.
So we know about the qualities of Krishna, but how would you use them to explain to someone else that Krishna is real and like you believe in him? And how would you use it to explain Krishna?
Depends on the person. Depends on the person. I mean, some people have an issue just, if they're either over on this side of atheist or even a little more softer of agnostic, I'm not sure, then your mission is to help them understand, well, it's plausible to accept that there's a person, that there's a supreme person who does, who from whom everything comes. Depends on the situation, who you're interacting with. Yes, Sriniti.
Maharaj, this is actually from my mom.
Your mom?
Yeah.
Text message, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
She was asking, can a devotee have more than one rasa relationship with Krishna according to particular moods they carry on different times in the Bhava Bhakti stage?
There's no indication of that.
Okay.
Nice try. Here's something that Tamal Krishna Maharaj said in this relation. It's not exactly responding to her question. He said that he specifically asked Prabhupada, it's a little bit like Brajabihari's question, if Brajabihari is still online. He asked, is our rasa fixed, or can our rasa become something and then become something else? Like that. And Prabhupada, he expected Prabhupada would say fixed. But Prabhupada's answer was, in the spiritual world things are not static, they're ecstatic. Indicating that through association, this can become more like that. So in response to Brajabihari, his understanding matches my understanding. At the same time, association makes a huge difference. Just like we're associating with Lord Chaitanya and Lord Chaitanya's teachings and Lord Chaitanya's followers of his teachings. So by that association, it inclines us towards Braja Bhakti as opposed to Vaikuntha Bhakti. By association, it's only natural. Okay. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I have a question from the morning session.
Okay.
About Krishna being present in each and every atom in fullness. So we also have Paramatma in our heart.
Yes.
When we talk about in a special way, like soul and super soul residing in our heart, and I also read about the dimensions and all that stuff. So how is that form of Krishna different from Krishna present in
How is that form of Krishna different from what?
From Krishna present in each and every atom, which could be in this pen or other things. So how is there any difference between Paramatma in my heart and Paramatma in the other parts of my body atoms?
No.
No.
Because he's just one entity. How many Paramatmas are in this room? However many people there are in this room, whatever the number is, 50 or whatever the number is, 40 or whatever the number is. How many Paramatmas are there? One. How many atoms are there? Who can count them all? How many Paramatmas are there? One. Does that answer your question? You look
no, I didn't understand.
surprised.
I didn't understand, Maharaj.
Okay, I'll try it again. How to do it differently. That nice painting that we saw of Super Soul, kind of like with the banyan tree in the background, and Super Soul that's in the heart of all those different forms of life. So all those different forms of life. There's a dog, there's an elephant, there's a Brahmin, there's a laborer, etc., etc., a tree, a plant, a bird. Super Soul is in the heart of everyone. How many super souls? One. One entity in all hearts of all of those beings. Yes? Is that clear or not clear?
Yes, but is it not that I have super soul and she has super soul and...
Same one, same super soul. You're not a different super soul A, super soul B, and super soul C.
Are they not the expansions?
The same super soul. Anyway, pass the microphone, because that's the way it is. And that same super soul is within every atom too. It's one super soul. He's all pervasive. Although within the heart of everyone. Don't limit him, please. He's not limited. Yes?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So, Radharani's main rival, she's also an expansion of Radharani?
Sure. Why not?
So why is she
Why not?
having a different...
It's for the pleasure of Krishna, that's all. That's everything in the spiritual world is for the pleasure of Krishna. And there's only one reason for anything to exist, for the pleasure of Krishna. Why Jatila, who seems to be opposing the loving relation of Radha and Krishna? Oh, she's not an expansion of Radharani, but she's part of the internal... Her position is arranged by Krishna, however he arranges things. Yes?
In addition to that is Abhimanyu.
In addition to a microphone too, huh?
Thank you. Hare Krishna Maharaj. So in addition to that is Abhimanyu, Jatila and Kotala, they are also there in Gokula, Goloka, or just in Gokula?
I don't know. If they're there, it's not as the husband of Radharani. if they're there.
Okay. And one more thing, I just wanted to confirm that I got the right thing. So when the unknown person runs and says that there is a demon, Arishtasura is coming, that is in Golok.
Yes.
It's not in Gokula, there are demons.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Gokula, there is.
Arishtasura comes, look out.
Right. And in Golok, it's just the pastime thing.
Now,
just the bhava.
Back to your earlier question. This is again referring, I don't have a scriptural reference for this, but with reference to Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj's explanation, and he's very careful about what he says. Doesn't just like make up something because it's cute. So he describes, in relation to the bhava that there's husbands, similarly someone comes running into the scene and says, look out, Abhimanyu is coming. And, Govardhan Mala is coming. That's the husband of Chandravali, Govardhan Mala. So those personalities exist, apparently, but it's only, at least, whether they exist or they don't exist, it's a bhava that there's marriages. So that the marriages have got to be somebody that they think they're married to. Well, I guess it doesn't have to be. It can be like, I think I'm married, although I don't have a husband, or don't have a wife. I think I'm married. By the influence of Yogamaya. So I'll ask more knowledgeable Vaishnavas than myself on such subjects. I certainly want to avoid flying in the sky with speculations about things that's way over our head anyways. But I'll entertain some more questions. In the back, yeah. All the way in the back. Put your hand up. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I was wondering, so you said there are no demons in Goloka, but also when the demons are killed by Krishna in Gokula, aren't they liberated? So if they can't go to Goloka, where do they go?
Did you get it? Huh? They get liberation.
Where do they go from Gokula?
Oh, they go, they two different situations. They can merge into the Brahma Jyoti because they don't have, depends. They could be reinstated in their eternal position, or they could be just liberated, merging into the Brahma Jyoti, and it depends. How's that for an answer?
But so they don't go to Goloka, but they just
They can, but not necessarily. Like, Putana is an example. You know who Putana is, right? A witch. She wanted to poison Krishna. So Krishna gave her liberation, but accepted the motherly affection that she had to be the mother of Krishna, and gave her a position in Goloka. So it depends. Okay. Up front here? Keeping you busy, huh? Running around. Okay.
Guru Maharaj, would you kindly explain the word yana, conveyances, in text 36?
Which one word?
Yana, conveyances, translated as conveyances.
36. I don't see the word you're looking at, or it's mentioning. Yad bhava bhava dadyo, that one?
Yes.
Which word are you referring to?
Yana.
Yana. Oh, there it is. Okay. Yana. Conveyances. In Vrindavan they ride in bullock carts. In Mathura they ride in other chariots. And, the queens may be taken in palanquins. Appropriate conveyances. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
My question is, so we talked about many stories about Krishna's pastimes.
Yeah, are they nice?
They are very nice, but what is the present time of Krishna?
What is the present?
Time of Krishna. What's his present time?
What's he doing now? Oh. Well, the good news is, these pastimes are eternal. So, I mentioned, I'll now say it slowly, something that I already mentioned. There's manifest or visible, and then Krishna performs those pastimes, and then he goes on, according to our devotional teachings, another universe, and then another universe, and there's pastimes eternally going on in some universe. Like Prabhupada gives the example, a spool, like a thread. Thread is kept on a little thing, and it's a spool. So, like a spool, you pull from the spool, and the thread keeps coming, and so somewhere Krishna's performing his birth pastime. Just like somewhere the sun is rising, and then the sun is rising, and then the sun is rising, and always somewhere the sun is rising. And then the sun just comes over the horizon, boop, somewhere the sun is coming over the horizon. And then somewhere it's midday, and somewhere it's a midday. Just so, like the movements of the sun, the pastimes of Krishna are described as they're eternally going on in some universe, one pastime after the next pastime in sequence. That's his manifest pastimes. Now, after Krishna leaves, his pastimes, manifest pastimes are ended. There is his eternal, like what's he doing now, his eternal pastimes are eternally going on. Now, if you and I went there, let's go sometime. We'll go to Vrindavan, and we'll look around and see if we can see Krishna's pastimes. And we probably won't see Krishna's pastimes. But there's a verse coming up, those that have the eyes of love for Krishna, they can see, because his pastimes are eternally going on. That's what he's doing now. He's doing eternal pastimes now. But they're not manifest to us unless we have the eyes of love. And then, reciprocating with our love, Krishna may reveal his pastimes. And we can participate in those pastimes.
A follow-up question. So the pastime only happen at Vrindavan, or it's happening everywhere?
Nice question. Well, Krishna can appear wherever. There's no restriction. There's no law that says he can't. He makes the laws, and he breaks the laws. So he can appear wherever he wants. But he appears where there is love. And especially in those places that are his eternal abode, or his eternal dham, or place of residence, he appears there. So maybe you remember, I showed this nice picture of this drawing of the yantra, of the lotus with Radha and Krishna in the middle and the petals, and then the white region outside, quadrangular region. That's other places where Krishna performs pastimes and makes it as his eternal residence. So commonly he appears there. Because it's not a bodily, I was born in China, or I was born in the United States, and therefore, yay, China, yay, United States. It's not like that. It's his eternal abode. So he has affinity, naturally, for his eternal abode, and vice versa. So generally he appears there. But Krishna can appear anywhere. where there's love of his devotee. And he can exchange loving dealings. He can talk and do things with his devotee. No restriction. But it's from his side, he does where there's love. And I could narrate some pastimes where Krishna showed himself outside of Vrindavan, or outside of Mathura or Dwarka, those three places in that depiction of Goloka, where there's love for him. How's that?
Thank you.
Okay. When I was in China, go ahead, take the microphone. During the national holiday, I make the same presentation in China, and somebody said, is there some reason why he only appears in India and he doesn't appear in China? And I said, well, you know what? If all of you devotees here in China develop such love like those devotees in Vrindavan, Krishna may appear in China. Because that's where he appears. They went, yay, let's get love for Krishna and maybe he'll come to China. You get the idea? Okay. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yeah.
I have a question regarding Krishna's marriage.
Question of marriage.
Yes.
Krishna's marriage or someone else's?
Krishna's marriage,
okay.
of course.
Thank you.
So his wives, Rukmini, the 8 main wives and the 16,100 other wives, they were all part of Radharani, right?
Yes.
So they were all expansions of the
Yes,
Radharani
according
Shakti?
to Rupa Goswami, with a big exclamation point at the end. Yes. It's a very interesting Leela. I invite you to read Vidagdha Madhava someday. It's found there. But the answer is yes.
So were they the expansions of the Haladini Shakti and the Chit's potency?
Yes.
Or?
Yes. But the bhava outside of Vrindavan is different. The bhava in Vrindavan is sweeter. And Krishna is attracted to that bhava, but still the answer to your question is yes. You done?
Yeah.
Okay. Who's next? Someone up here? Go ahead. I think we should take this last question and then end.
This is from Virajita Singh Mataji. She asks, is one of the lessons from Krishna's confidential pastimes that seems to contradict moral behavior in the material world that we should not imitate him but recognize his place as supreme enjoyer and our place as his servant?
Very good. We didn't get there yet, but very good. Now, the problem, one of the big problems, is imitation. Imitation of a holy person. Imitation of Krishna. Imitation without qualification is awful. It discredits the genuine thing in the minds of worldly people. So you definitely don't imitate, recognize Krishna's exalted, unique, singular, special position and honor him for that as the supreme enjoyer. Okay. Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai.